Hi everybody, this is Steve Krause and welcome to Writing in the Professional World, Writing 323, the online version for fall of 14, fall 2014. This is just a brief introductory video for me to introduce myself to you and to hit just a couple of highlights on the policies. But what I really want you to do is, after you watch this, look through the website and post down below here what sort of expectations and hopes you have for the class, along with whatever questions you might have about the class too. So I'm looking right now at my computer, see my computer right here, at the policies, and that's the first thing that I would encourage you to look at on the website. You obviously found the website because you're watching the video. Class is called Writing 323, Writing in the Professional World, and it's an introductory writing intensive course for students in the written communications major and minor. Now, I mention that because a lot of you are not in that major or minor. A lot of you are in independent study programs or some other program at EMU. Now, you're totally welcome to stay in the class, and I hope you enjoy it, and I think you'll get good things out of it too. But I just want you to keep in mind that that's the assumption of the class. So I can't tailor this class to everyone's independent major and everyone's independent need. You have to come to the class recognizing what you are getting yourself into, which is a class where we assume that people who take this are interested in writing professionally. The second thing I want to point out is that it's actually an introductory class. This is the kind of class that we want students to take near the beginning of the major or the minor, not at the end. Some of you are actually kind of taking this towards the end, which means that some of what we're going to cover in this class is going to be kind of repeating what you may have taken in other classes. So bear with me on that, and hopefully, again, you'll find some things that are interesting and unique in the experience for you. All the basic information about how to get a hold of me is on the policies page. Email is by far the best way to get a hold of me. There's a more official description of the class. There's no textbook for the class. Everything is going to be available online, and either through just websites and things like that, or EMU online. We'll use this site, like all around here, this page. We'll use this site to conduct the class business, the conversations and links to things and whatnot. And EMU Online I'll use mainly as a place for the grade book. So when I grade things, that's where you'll go find that stuff. Let me say a few things about the online attendance and participation aspect of the class. And this really speaks to sort of one of the interesting things about online classes. So one of the great pros of online classes is that you have incredible flexibility. I mean, look at me, I'm in my backyard. There's actually some construction going on next door, which is why you hear some hammering once in a while. It's a lovely day. You know, we're not cooped up in some sort of classroom someplace, and you can be interacting with this class in a whole bunch of different, you have a lot more flexibility. But there's some significant disadvantages of that too. For one thing, it would be a lot more efficient in terms of how we interact with each other if we were all in the same place at the same time. That's why maybe a way of comparing it is sort of the issue of bandwidth. You've heard that before in terms of internet downloads and all that kind of business. The face-to-face class has a very, very large bandwidth. I mean, you can communicate a lot of information with each other in person. The online class, not so much. So that means that we have to rely on writing things to each other. It means that sometimes you have to spend more time, writing comments and posting things and clarifying things and asking questions and all that kind of stuff. So while an online class can shift time, that is, you have a lot more flexibility when you can do it. It doesn't save you any time. If anything, interacting in an online class actually takes more time than a face-to-face class. So if you thought you were taking this class in order to sort of make your life easier and save a lot of time and things like that, that's not really the case. The other thing is that it's flexible only up to a point. And what I mean by that is that our class is going to have a very specific schedule as to when we do things. Generally speaking, when you look at the calendar, we do things on Mondays and Wednesdays. That is, sometime during the day on Monday, you usually start an activity or discussion, and it tapers off until Wednesday. And sometime on Wednesday, you start an activity or discussion, and it tapers off until Friday. There's a lot of flexibility there. I mean, both of these days are 24 hours long, and there's, you know, lots of time during the week. But what it does mean is that if you were thinking that you could take this class all on a Saturday, or that you could do the whole class like in a weekend, because apparently there used to be some online classes like that where the whole thing was up there and you could just do it. That's not the case. Writing is a social activity. Writing requires us to interact with each other, and because of that, we need to be on each other's schedule. So read the stuff about the online attendance carefully. If you're too absent too many times, you're probably not going to pass the class. And while I'm on that topic, let me just say one thing about being present in an online class. Because the way the interface works, because the only way that I can tell from here that you there are interacting with the class is through comments you leave on the class discussion, in the class discussions. You actually have to actively engage in the conversation and actively participate in the class. Again, this is interesting to think about in relationship to a face-to-face class, because in a face-to-face class you could be sitting in the classroom and not say anything at all, but still be participating because you're paying attention, and you can give, you know, body cues, you know, nod and things like that. Can't do that online. The only way we can tell if you are here is if you're actually here. Okay. So read all that stuff about online attendance and participation carefully. We'll talk about the participation grade in the middle of the term and at the end of the term, but essentially what it comes down to is that I will ask you to email me in the middle of the term what grade you think you've earned for participation so far, and then we'll do the same sort of thing at the end of the term. We'll negotiate about this a little bit, and you'll see that it'll work out. There's several writing assignments. You'll see one of the writing assignments: the personal statement assignment, the email writing assignment, letter of complaint, response to the letter of complaint, instructions assignment, informal report assignment, resume and application letter assignment, and the formal recommendation report and presentation. Now, they're of differing lengths. The formal report and the informal report and the instructions are probably the longest assignments. Most of these assignments, including the personal statement, the email, the letters, the resumes, are only a couple of pages long. But let me warn you about the only a couple of pages long thing right from the get-go. I think that sometimes what happens is some students interpret a one-page assignment as being something that's like, oh, I can just kind of, you know, throw that off. It'll only take me 10 minutes to do or something like that. No, 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 no. A lot of the writing we're going to be talking about this semester is very, very short, but that means that it has to be very, very right. Okay? In other words, every word choice, every sentence choice counts. So you can't be sloppy in something that's only 200 words long. It's kind of interesting to think about in terms of the difference between writing in the academic world and writing in the quote-unquote professional world. We're used to assignments in most college classes where length is the value. The more writing that you can produce, the better your writing is viewed. That's not what we're talking about here. And I think it's an incredibly valuable skill to think about. I mean, after all, Facebook posts, Twitter posts are both very common forms of writing, and they're both really, really short. I had to stop for a second there because it turns out one of my neighbors was kind of rocking out a little bit. I guess they turned the music off, but if you hear some music, that's what that is. Okay, back to the writing assignments thing just for a second. We'll be using pretty much for all the assignments, with a few exceptions here and there, Google Docs, both as a way for doing peer review and as a way for tracing the revision process in drafts. No Microsoft Word, and I think you'll see what I mean. Google Docs is a really, really useful tool for doing collaborative writing and peer review kinds of work, and just writing in general. So I've used it now for several classes, and it seems like students really kind of get into the idea of using it. And everyone should have, with their new Google supported EMU account, a perfectly suitable Google account for using for this class. All the assignments contain contain a memo, a writer's memo. We'll talk early in the semester about what that means, but it's essentially all the writing projects have a particular audience and purpose in mind that's not necessarily me, but the writing memo is to me, and that's where you'll capture the sort of process that you went through in putting together your assignment. The rest of the stuff is pretty easy to read through, so I would encourage you to do so. I have a little bit more here about revision, and we can talk more about that as we get further along in the semester. The other thing I always like to point out is that in order to pass the course, you have to complete all the major assignments, regardless of your grade on the other assignments. So, for example, if you decided that you didn't want to do the final project because it's all just one big grade, right? There's all the writing projects are one holistic grade, and if you decide, hey, you know what, I don't want to spend all the time this last project that you want us to do, and I'll just take I got A's and everything else, I'll just take a C. No, you wouldn't pass. So you got to finish all the major projects. There's some fine print there about plagiarism and the writing center that you shouldn't do, and I also have a little bit of a narrative there about what I mean by grades. So you can take a look at that if you want, because I think that sometimes there's a disconnect between what students think grades are about and what professors think grades are about. The only thing I'll point out right now is if you look at the top of the website, if you click on the tab that says schedule, that will take you to a week-by-week schedule as it exists right now. There's some things that say to be arranged, which means, or TBA, to be arranged, which means that there's some stuff I still have to decide on what we're going to do. But just as a simple example, week 1, September 3rd to 5th, the first day of classes is September 3rd, we're doing this, or having class introductions, and then we're going to start working on how Google Docs works. And I expect everybody to start with both of those activities on Wednesday, September 3rd, and then we'll keep doing it until Friday. And then on Monday, we'll continue with Google Docs. We'll talk about the memo requirements, the personal statement assignment, etc. And all the stuff that's listed there where it says begin Monday, we'll start talking about those things on Monday and so forth. Hopefully you'll get the hang of it pretty soon. And I'll give you feedback on how that's all going. Okay, great. Thanks for watching this. So now do me a favor, now that you've watched this and you've looked at the class website a little bit. In the comments below, introduce yourself, number one. And number two, because after all, we have to meet each other somehow. And number two, what sort of aspirations, goals do you have for the course? I mean, I know you don't know necessarily a whole lot about it right now, but you signed up for it. You must be hoping to get something out of it. What are you trying to get? Let us know. All right, see you online.